about to run, but still can't reach that tangerine head. Mermaid, a time that's gone by. You've come to realize that you're from masquerade. You spelled out your name, but still don't think you're anyone of consequence. Nobody's to blame for the price of precious time you are wasting on the fence. Oh no, the love has been stranded and drowned in wine. For so long, being taken for granted, well, forgotten dreams arise and shine. Tell me a story, mermaid from Istanbul. Tell me a story, mermaid from Istanbul. Istanbul. Crimson moon shines. It sheds those lines on your face much clearer. Expresses nothing. It should be west of bronze light with a lipstick on the mirror. Oh no, your eyes have been blinded by the promised land you don't trust. You are no longer blinded. Your face was ground into angel dust. Tell me a story, mermaid from Istanbul. Tell me a story, mermaid from Istanbul. Girl, I think I know you. Girl, I think I know you. Girl, I think I know you. Oh, girl, I think I know you. Oh, so many things to sacrifice. Tell me a story, mermaid from Istanbul.
Live. Yes, hello, welcome to Larsen Live, the first broadcast. Much like WCW Saturday Night, we start 5 minutes into the hour. It is a brisk and chilly October Sunday, so I hope you're all enjoying this lazy day. I had a hell of a workout, as I always do on Sunday mornings, which is to say, I end up in a public park having a bunch of small children watching me fail doing handstands. Hey, I got 2 right out of 15 or so. That was fueled by a hearty breakfast of bacon, eggs, and homemade hash browns. But how are you all doing? Keep those donations and super chats or regular chats coming, so I don't come off as a deranged loser talking to myself for the next hour or so. Alright, the song that opened the show was Mermaid from Istanbul by the criminally underrated Kagero, a band from my homeland, which is of course the tri-state area. I actually played them fairly frequently when I was on the college radio station. I believe they're from New Jersey, actually, but they've kind of scattered to the 4 sulfur-smelling winds of the turnpike since 2015. Oh god, does it really hurt when I recall their fate. And yes, doing a live broadcast once again brings me back to those radio days. But yeah, Kagero, less than 60 subscribers on SoundCloud, they amounted to roughly dick in the musical scene. And take a look around you people. Look at the absolute drizzling shits the mainstream listens to these days. I mean, like, the stuff that's on radio is just, like, I would say it's bad rap, but does it even really count as rap? I mean, I consider myself a fan of old school hip-hop, but the stuff that's on nowadays is just complete ass. And yeah, I know I'm hardly breaking new ground on this, but I despise that mumble shit. Like, why do they... what's the word? Why do they all spout their verbiage while sounding like they're either gargling a bunch of cocks or on the verge of suicidal depression? Or possibly both at the same time? I mean, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. I mean, I don't know the names of any of these morons. I mean, I hear them at the gym in between me putting my headphones in and turning that shit off. But due to headphones being what they are, I still hear at least a little bit of this garbage when I do the Olympic clean and jerk. Because I take them out so the earbuds don't smack me in the face. Yeah, anyway. Now, why are all the beats nowadays just high treble bilge? You know, me, a 30-year-old white-ish man who chooses to go out and face the day dressed like Clark Kent on a daily basis. I should not be able to be a legitimately better rapper than anybody on the radio right now, and yet you all know I am. With regards to Mr. Kent, I'll have some things to say about the state of the comic industry later, but we'll get to that. But yeah, it's great that a bunch of slack-jawed, dull-eyed, drug-addled imbeciles can mumble a bunch of crap and get millions of dollars, while Kaz Fujimoto of Kagero, a talented singer and multi-instrumentalist, ends up working in a goddamn grocery store in Brooklyn. And yes, I did make a pilgrimage to meet him there. Nice guy. Yeah, so... To go back to the, to go back to the rap comments, I mean, am I even whitish at this point? Like, don't the woke types consider Asians to be white people now? So, I don't know what to feel about that. I mean, I'm mixed with 2 different flavors of case-selected, low-time preference whiteness. And that's just swell. You know, how Asians have all the drawbacks of being white, being hated by non-Asian minorities, being lectured on their privilege, and so forth. And none of the benefits, by which I, of course, mean being automatically seen as confident and capable sexually attractive men, you know, because as I always like to say, the only actually existing white privilege there is that white men are given the benefit of the doubt in being seen as sexy alpha males, whereas an Asian man, or most NAMs actually, have to go above and beyond to portray themselves as such. And I, of course, speak from experience. Well, let's hope that the dumpy brown women of the world will achieve their greatest goal, to rearrange society so that they will be seen as the most attractive, eh? Then things will be right. Yeah, sorry, fat women, that ain't happening. You know, call it punching down or picking the low-hanging fruit, but yeah, these women need the occasional verbal smacking down. I once had to hear an art teacher at the school I'm working at right now. You know, she was talking about pop art, the Warhol diptychs. They came up and, gee, wouldn't you know it, she had to mention that crap about Marilyn Monroe was a size 16, which I'm sure you've all heard before. I kept up my patrician facade, of course, but internally, I want to put my fist through all the walls, and I want to put my fist through the wall whenever I hear some heifer popping off about that crap. So I'm going to set the record straight on this right now. At her peak, Marilyn Monroe was a size 0 by modern standards. She was a size 10 by 50s standards. The sizing of clothes has changed to protect the delicate egos of fat women. She had a 22-inch waist, and even at her fattest, drug-addled train wreck period, her waist was still 30 inches or so. The average American woman today has a 34-inch waist. I'm an adult man who can deadlift twice his body weight, squat 3 plates and do the human flag, and my waist is 34 inches. I hate to sound like, Chicken Little screaming about the sky falling down, but I think there's a problem here. I'm hotter than she was. Shut up. It is my solemn duty to defend the honor of voluptuous hourglass figures wherever they are found. She's not even my favorite silver screen vixen, but I just have to get that off my chest. I'm a big fan of Golden Age Hollywood, both the glamour and the grime. Yes, I am a heterosexual man. And, I want to make it very clear, I don't hate fat women or fat people in general. I mean, you do you. If you want to be fat, then be fat. And if you want to lose weight, then I will give you all the support I can as a ex-personal trainer whose certification is completely lapsed. It's the fat acceptance people, the people who flaunt it, the people who make up idiotic claims about it being healthy and shame those that are fit, the people who don't understand just how difficult and much of an effort being fit is. Those are the people that annoy me. And by people, I of course mean women. Because I have yet to find a single man who is into the fat acceptance garbage. Alright, let's take a bit of a break, look at some chats. Let's see what people are talking about and or asking. Okay? If you want to send me some super chats or whatever, go ahead and do that. Yes, thank you, Mitchell Valentino. Okay, can everybody hear me okay? Because chats are a little not... I was expecting much more conversation, but I'm sure it'll come as we go on. Can everybody hear me all right? Give me an answer. Take a little break. Alright, so nobody responded, so I'm going to assume that everybody can hear me okay. That's great. All this rambling about female adiposity has made me realize something else. And, this is something I was kind of thinking about. In case you're wondering, yes, I do have bullet points of what I want to talk about. I'm not just shooting off the hip here. But yeah, I was realizing how the comedic perception of fatness is not at all fat by modern standards. Now what I mean is, look at, go back in time, let's look at Golden Age Hollywood, let's look at the wacky fat guys. Yeah, look at who they were. I mean, would Oliver Hardy or Curly Howard or Ralph Cramden, would they be even fat in this day and age? I think they would look completely normal, actually. I mean, hell, the standard lasted until the 90s. Homer Simpson, who is a character who is defined by his comical obesity. How much does he weigh? Does anybody know? Homer is canonically 240 pounds. Even in the episode where he deliberately gains weight to become so fat he's legally disabled, he tops off at 315. Do I really need to point out that you can go to your average big box fuck mart and see dozens of people that are fatter than that nowadays? I addressed years ago in one of my Return of Kings articles what I think are the main reasons for the spike of American fat-assery since the 90s. My theory is it is the combination of the economy shitting itself so more people live paycheck to paycheck and thus feel they have to eat crap just to fill their bellies because they don't have time to make proper food. But at the same time, that's just ignorance because I have spent months unemployed in the past. I spent years working absolute dead-end minimum wage jobs. I have literally been so poor that I've had to steal food to survive, and I still managed to eat healthy. I still managed to buy healthy food. And of course by buy, I mean steal. I'm a law-abiding citizen now. And it's not that complicated to eat healthy. You can make a damn pamphlet and explain this to the fatties of the world. What clown universe do we live in where poverty makes you fat? Just don't eat garbage food and you'll be fine. I don't see why this is hard, and I've always said, Just give me every fatty in America and a megaphone to yell in all their faces. I could cure the obesity epidemic in 5 minutes. This fucking country. I honestly don't know whether it was a blessing or a curse that I grew up in the 90s. On the one hand, the 90s were basically the last decade where America was at least somewhat sane. But that is, in and of itself, the blessing and the curse. What I mean is I had a slight taste of a functioning country, a country that wasn't going out of its way to make the world a worse place, a country that had a culture that wasn't actively destroying its past, and we'll get back to this in a little bit, due to the news. But yeah, the America that I had a slight taste of was a country where not every person was a giant tub of shit. Whereas if I were born at any time beyond 9/11, I would have never known an America that wasn't going straight down the highway to hell. By the way, did the widgets come up when Mitchell sent me that super chat? I worked pretty hard editing some River City Ransom sprites. I want to see them come up. I didn't hear anything, but maybe that's just me. Anyway, I'll just keep talking. But yeah, like I said, I do feel really bad for the kids that were born at any point after 9/11, like, you know, the kids I teach nowadays. I mean, they've never known an America that wasn't just utter garbage. Yeah, I'm with the Beckloff on this one. Again, that's a live stream y'all should all be listening to. 9/11 is what killed this country. It has been a long, slow death, but I think we're all kind of agreeing, you know, both domestically and abroad, this country's never quite going to recover. And speaking of long, slow deaths, and that's the only possible transition I can make. Give me 1 second as I drink some of that water. Kids love that water. Yeah, let's talk about that controversy about one of New Jersey's greatest sons, James Rolfe, the angry video game nerd. Yeah, I must say I was a bit perturbed about what happened. For those of you who aren't aware, it was recently discovered that one of his Halloween Monster Madness videos was plagiarized from, I think it was some academic paper, something about horror movies. And then further investigation revealed that he had, in fact, sold out his company to Screenwave Media, aka those chodes do the podcast with him. Thus, those guys are now writing scripts for him and editing his videos, and James is like a figurehead, whereas when he started, it was all him doing his stuff. You know, I think what's really upsetting people here is the fact that he didn't tell anyone about it. You know, I totally understand why he did what he did. I mean, James has got to be, what, 40 or so? You know, he's married, he's got kids, and, you know, maybe he doesn't feel like editing videos and putting in all this work anymore so he can spend more time with his family. And, of course, you know, maybe he doesn't want his kids to grow up and see his dad, like, shitting on things and, like, hurling profanity every which way. I totally get that. But if you're going to sell out, then just come out and say it. You know, don't lie to your fans. Just say, I sold out, deal with it. And yeah, to an extent it does upset me because, you know, the nerd started doing his shit, what, 2004? I mean, I was watching him by 2006. Yeah, I was in 8th grade thereabouts. Yeah, 2006, I was in sophomore in high school. But yeah, I was watching him from the beginning. I mean, he was legit a big inspiration for me to starting this channel. That he did all his stuff by himself and he forged his own path. While he hasn't gone off the deep end like some people we can name from Arizona, Noah Antweiler, I'd be lying if I said this wasn't a betrayal to at least some degree. And yes, at least I said betrayal like a normal person, so streaming it like a dumbass, Spoonie. And yeah, speaking of people who, you know, ended up turning their back on their fans, I will never stop hammering the Spoonie drum because, you know, even more than the angry video game nerd, Spoonie was my guy as a teenager, and, well, we all know what happened there. There's plenty of videos on that. I will tell you, dear listeners, that if I ever did sell out, well, first of all, I'm going to laugh at the idea that anybody would want to buy out this pissant channel. But yeah, if I ever did sell out and become a mere figurehead for a media corporation that was that was writing my scripts and editing my videos, I would let you know. And by that, I mean I would come on screen wearing a fur coat with one arm around a pair of slutty co-eds and the other hand making it rain. I mean, yeah, I would be sorry that I sold out. Sorry I didn't do it earlier. Ah, jeez, and I'm just gonna let you all pretend like it hasn't been 3 years since I last bagged the slutty co-ed. Yep, nothing like shacking up with a 19-year-old when you're 27. I mean, what? I'm sure someone's gonna be mad at me for that. Okay, so like I said, I'm working on bullet points here, so we're just gonna do the occasional random gear shift. Sudden gear shift again to horror movies. So has anybody heard about that Hellraiser reboot in which a trans woman will be playing Pinhead? I don't even remember the woman's name, but yeah, there was some Twitter bickering about this. I mean, I consider myself to be a big fan of, well, the first two Hellraisers before the series became utter garbage, and to that I say, let her try. I mean, there's precedent for it. In the original Hellbound Heart, Pinhead, or should I say the Hell Priest, since, Clive Barker has to be a snob about everything. He's described as being sort of hermaphroditic. In the comic books, he dies and a woman takes up the mantle. And of course, Julia was supposed to be the main villain of the series starting the third one, but that didn't happen because everybody was bitching about Pinhead. It's just like what happened with Halloween. It was supposed to do things that were new and interesting starting the third one, but nobody wanted that because you just want the same old shit over and over again. And then, like any other horror franchise, Hellraiser became a convoluted shit show which had plot threads that go absolutely nowhere, and then you ultimately have to reboot it, which is what we're doing now. I mean, fucking one of those movies has them, like, coming out of video games or something, or, like, taking over the internet or some crap like that. I mean, that might have worked if the plot had involved the themes that the franchise is supposed to have. Like, I don't know, the movie's plot revolved around fat neckbeards jacking off 10 times a day and watching more and more depraved internet pornography, leading them to the dark web and yada yada yada. But of course it didn't happen. Almost as if every Hellraiser movie after the fourth one was just an original horror script that had S&M demons shoved in awkwardly. I literally just made up a plot for that movie in 10 seconds that was better than what we got. And the fucking fourth movie was in space. Because that's when you've hit rock bottom in terms of ideas, when you're going into space. So, yeah, you know what? I'm not angry about this. Let the trans woman try to be Pinhead. It can't be any worse than some of the movies in that franchise. But my question is, are we allowed to do Hellraiser movies anymore? I mean, what I mean is, are we allowed to make movies in which the problems are caused by sloppy, hedonists craving ever more depraved sexual desire and forbidden knowledge, and the main characters are grotesque S&M demons that blend the lines of pleasure and pain, masculinity and femininity, and are horrifically warped beings that were once human that have long since been subsumed by perversion to the point they don't even remember their humanity? Are we allowed to make movies in which both men and women are shown to be capable of evil, driven entirely by their lust and desire? Isn't that kind of against what we're all supposed to believe nowadays? I mean, aren't wanton sexuality and base hedonism our greatest moral strengths today? Or hell, is half the shit that goes on sexually nowadays really any more depraved than what the Cenobites would do to you? I mean, compare the shit in the first Hellraiser to the people advocating that it's wrong to not want to have sex with trans women, or that it's totally cool to not disclose that status until after you've had sex with them, or the constant admonitions to stick things up your ass, bro. I mean, at least Pinhead and friends gave people warnings and a chance to back out after they solved Lamarchand's box. I mean, they say we have such sights to show you, but do they really? I mean, in a day and age where it's totally cool for children to dance for money at bars as long as they're in drag while doing it, a day and age where mukbangs are a viable video genre, and a day and age where men in suits festooned with multiple rubber peni proudly march down the street, can the Cenobites really show us anything? I think they're breaking even, honestly. Hellraiser could be done viably in this day and age, but I don't think the woke crowd would ever allow it to be done. With this new movie, I mean, my personal idea, if any Hollywood directors want to throw things at me, throw money at me, I should say, my ideas would involve Pinhead being, much like in his original portrayal, a mentally traumatized war veteran whose long pursuit of depraved insanity would involve him becoming an autogynephilic trans woman, and then, well, I've said too much. But no, I'm sure they'll put him in a Trump pompadour wig at some point, because of course they will. You know, he's got to grab him by the pussy. And by the way, I don't mean to brag, but I did kind of come up with the idea of both The Shape of Water and Cobra Kai years before they came out. The Hollywood producers have not given me any money. Now, to be fair, my idea for Cobra Kai was going to be a bit more cartoonishly goofy. It was going to take place in high school, and basically, you know, you would have like the cool kids, the blonde beasts, they would lose, you know. Okay, so the first like 10 minutes of the movie would just be, you know, the blonde beasts, like the Cobra Kais, in a montage of them losing, you know, the karate tournament, the football game, the soccer game, the hockey game, the swim team, you know, the basketball game, you know, all the different sports. And they'd be losing to, you know, the blonde hair, I'm sorry, the black haired, like, nerdy kid, you know, the other nerdy kid, the horse, the chimp, like the girl, you know, all that stuff. And then basically the, you know, the outcasts and like chimps and horses and stuff, they would become the new bullies of the school. And then the Cobra Kais would have to kind of redeem themselves and take back the school, and it would just be a big, you know, rollicking fisticuff at the end. Yeah, well, it's too late to make money on that now. And my idea for The Shape of Water was literally, hey, wouldn't it be funny if the next paranormal romance was Creatures from the Black Lagoon? And then they did it. Hollywood, give me my royalties, please. Okay, so all that talk about autogynephilic trans women, which everybody still likes to pretend doesn't happen. But, you know, like I've said in my videos, I'm sure there's no other reason why brawny, masculine, middle-aged men just up and decide to become women someday. But yeah, let's talk about something less controversial, like Thomas Jefferson's statue being removed from the New York City Council building. Because, yeah, I mean, who considers Jefferson a hero today? I mean, who could possibly be inspired by a genius polymath that spoke 6 languages fluently, created the Library of Congress, and led our country to victory over a nation of pirates enslaving American citizens? I mean, any moron could do that. I mean, that's nothing, am I right? We gotta build statues for George Floyd and the other real heroes, am I right? Yes. Okay, gotta quench my thirst again. No, of course it's about slavery, because that's literally what Jefferson's entire life boils down to. I'm not naive. I realize the man wasn't a cardboard saint. Nobody is. And you know, I'm going to say it. I am 100% for a warts and all portrayal of history. But that's not the same thing as what we do now, which is zooming in on the wart and focusing all your attentions on the wart. And for the record, since we're talking about Jefferson and all that, yeah, let's kind of point out the widely inflated claims with regards to the Sally Hemings thing, which is of course what all the controversy is about. Now, if you go to Monticello, they will tell you up front that all 6 of her children were fathered by Jefferson. Now, that can be demonstrably proven false, considering only one of her descendants that was tested had Jefferson DNA. So, to be more accurate, the claim should be there is a possibility that one of her children was fathered by Thomas Jefferson. There were 8 Jefferson males at Monticello at the time, and it could have been him or any of the other 7. And again, it could have been him. I'm not saying it's impossible. Even the smartest of men, and Thomas Jefferson certainly was of the smartest of men, can be guilty of thinking with the wrong head. And considering that all the evidence shows that any possible liaison only happened after Jefferson's wife died, there's probably an element of grieving rebound sex in there as well. Let's not put our heroes on pedestals. You know, they're men, they have the same urges as any other man. Again, I specify not a saint, but even if this could be proven true with 100% certainty, are we really surprised that in the 18th century, a rich and powerful man fathered a bastard child with the help? That's hardly something unique to America, I don't think. But then again, having a country full of jack-offs who want to cut down and destroy everything about the country's history, that's hardly unique to America either, as we know. I've always said, if you're going to give a harsh, critical eye to history, either everybody gets it, or nobody should get it. And in theory, I would totally be for every historical figure from every country being given a harsh appraisal to judge their place in history, because I am not a fan of blind patriotism and hero worship and whitewashing. But you know and I know that historical guilt tripping is never doled out evenly. Historical guilt is a weapon. And take a good look at who that weapon is aimed at, because like I said in my evil 1950s trope video, the demonization of the American past, or the British past, or the Canadian past, or whatever country's past, it's a weapon. It is a new mythology, a new conqueror's mythology, created by the new conquerors to justify why the old people are bad and the new people are good, and thus they are more deserving of the lands and stuff of the old people. Whenever a group of people conquer another group of people, they make up mythologies to justify their takeover. This is no different. Okay, actually, come to think of it, the Sally Hemings thing might be turned around to save Thomas Jefferson's reputation after all. What do I mean? She was a black woman after all, and as all the constant bloviating about beauty standards and representation and whitewashing and the endless talk about hair indicates, being seen as the pinnacle of beauty is pretty goddamn important. And I like to specify this is not just black women, this is all women. Okay, and, as evidenced by the fact that all women, not just black women again, are prone to romanticizing and sexualizing abusive relationships, in which a woman is an irresistible font of beauty that is ravaged by sweaty, vile, brutish men. And you can see this in myriads of shitty romance novels, and that certainly would include master-slave relationships, again, as seen in shitty romance novels, many of which are written by black women. If you don't believe me, take a gander on Amazon at WMBW Romance sometime. So basically the point I'm kind of rambling towards is that, seeing as Ms. Hemings was a black woman, and if the story is true, then Mr. Jefferson clearly found her attractive, then that means Thomas Jefferson found black women attractive, which therefore means he defied the Eurocentric beauty standards and therefore was a good person because he couldn't resist that black girl magic. Okay, spin doctors, get on this now. We have a founding father's reputation to save. And, I'm sure that angered somebody, but not the dumpy brown women who imagined colonial soldiers spit roasting them. But, let's take a break and we're going to look at some chats. Okay, let's see. See what you people have to say in the chats. Okay, Mitchell Valentino says, the snacking never ends in America. The A1C levels are through the roof. Yes, they are. Yes, Nelson Muntz was right. You do have to nuke something. I can see the regular chat, C-Punk Messiah. I mean, like I said, I am working off bullet points, so a lot of the times I'm just kind of thinking to myself or, reading off the bullet points. So I do periodically take breaks every 20 minutes or so to look at the chats. Yeah, you can say whatever you want. I mean, I'm not totally flying blind, but just mostly. I mean, I can kind of look towards the chat or away from my bullet points whenever I want. Okay, if anybody doesn't have any questions, I'll continue going on. And if you do have an urgent question, feel free to send in those super chats, because I really need your money. No, of course, I appreciate all of you. Okay, so speaking of American heroes being cut down, let's talk about the utter mediocrity of Superman being gay, which is what all the clickbait headlines say. It's not quite accurate, but let's talk about that. What was said... I'm sorry, what's happening in the comic? I just got a text message which totally distracted me. Yes, it's John Kent being gay. Like I said, I'm sure you've all seen these Superman is gay headlines going around. It's not Clark Kent, it's his son. And the torrent of clickbait headlines shows the inanity of this whole thing. My favorite comic book series of all time, The Goon, which you all really ought to be reading, made fun of this exact thing when they did a spoof of superheroes. where the Goon and Frankie, they're like, they're changing costumes every 5 panels, and they're having like different origin stories every 5 seconds, and then they just randomly start having gay sex for the publicity. Obviously, my beige description of it is not particularly funny, but it is very funny when you read it. The point I'm trying to make is this gay Superman thing, it's not really a big deal. I mean, it's going to last like 2 years and then go away because it's not going to affect anything. And I guess I'm a little bit more of a softie than some people would like. I'm willing to give this sort of thing a chance. Like, this is Jonathan Kent. It's a new-ish character. I don't recall if he was ever in the comics. I'm not a super knowledgeable person about this sort of thing. And look, like I said, it's a relatively new character. If they want to make him gay, that's fine. It's a new canvas to work on. I mean, I can understand the outrage if they made Clark suddenly gay, but new canvas, give it a chance. There's nothing wrong with gay characters per se, but there is something wrong with making them, a strong representation gay man, and then doing absolutely nothing with them beyond that. Oh, I'm sorry, I have a question here. Okay, so what are your thoughts on the bioethical premise that hypothesizes that the amount of incel violence can be reduced when they made equine fleshlights that felt more like the real thing? I've never heard this hypothesis. Like, wait, what do you mean equine fleshlights? Like horse vaginas? Yeah, I don't really understand, like, how horse vagina fleshlights are supposed to reduce the incel violence. Like, are they assuming that, like, every incel is a brony? Like, I don't really get it. I mean, the only thing I know about fleshlights is that one time I found one in a public bathroom, which was horrifying. I mean, they're not going to put the fleshlights in the horses, are they? Yeah, I don't know. Okay, yes, mare holes. Well, I don't understand why the incels would want to have sex with horses. I mean, don't they crave female human companionship? I don't know, I don't understand, like, what moron came up with the idea of, like, horse vaginas to cure the incel menace. I mean, when it comes to the incels, I mean, I've kind of made the argument that, a country that has legalized prostitution would, probably have much less incel violence than a more puritanical society like America. I mean, I'm sure there's incels in, like, Brazil, but, no, I did not use the fleshlight in the bathroom. Jesus. I would not stick my penis into things I find in public bathrooms. Yeah, like I was saying before I was politely interrupted, yeah, I do think that legalizing prostitution will, help a lot with the incel thing. Is, again, like, I myself, it's not really my thing. I don't have the money for that. Like, it's not a moral, like, problem I have with prostitution. It's just I'm a cheap, stingy bastard, and I don't want to pay for it. But, yeah, I mean, I definitely think, someone like Elliot Rodger or Alex Manassian would probably feel a lot better about themselves if they, got the old girlfriend experience from a hooker. Or, alternatively, the sex robots. Yeah, on my website, thebarbaricgentleman.com, I wrote an article a long time ago about how, like, there's tentative steps being made towards the invention of sex robots, which, I personally think would make a lot of difference in the incel problem. Because, even for you sex-positive feminists out there, as if any sex-positive feminists are possibly listening to this, that is as close as you can get to problematic-free prostitution. Sex robots, they don't have histories of sexual abuse. They don't get slapped around by pimps. And, that's going to be the first thing they do with AI. But, yeah, I mean, the incel problem, I would go with prostitution and or sex robots to cure the incel problem, rather than some kind of weird horse porn. Well, the problem with prostitution is, I mean, it's so stigmatized. I mean, obviously you don't want hookers like, propositioning like your 10-year-old son in your neighborhood. I mean, that's why you got the red light district. It should be kind of quarantined in a very specific area. And, I think it should be, legalized. You should have, basic minimum like safety regulations to avoid like abusive pimps and STDs and things like that. I mean, it seems to be working pretty well for the Netherlands, just as is my understanding. I've never been to Holland myself. But, yeah, I really want to know more about this, like, equine fleshlight thing. I mean, you got to tell me more about this. I mean, I know they have those dragon dildos. Is there some kind of weird, like, animal sex cabal that I'm not aware of? Jesus. What else can I say but this fucking country? Yeah, I definitely think that either extreme, whether it be the horse porn or the beta uprising that the incels desperately want, we don't have to do either of those things. I mean, for obvious reasons, I'm a little more trepidatious about the beta uprising because, I mean, I feel like your average incel would see me as like a quote-unquote Chad light, if not an out-and-out Chad, and they might, stick a shotgun in my mouth. I mean, I know for a fact that, like, I've had at least one guy who I'm pretty sure was an incel give me a dirty look once. But, yeah, like, the idea of me being a Chad is kind of comical. And, yeah, I don't know if you're aware, but I've written a wonderful 3-part novella, I guess, on Terror House about what the world of the beta uprising would actually be like. It was pretty well received. You should all read it. You should all read Terror House anyway, because the publishing industry sucks, and, we need stuff that's better. Okay, so if that's, if we're not going to talk anymore about horrifying sex toys, I'm going to move on rambling about comic books. Yes, like I was saying, the problem with what I assume is going to be the case with Jonathan Kent is that he's literally not going to be anything other than just gay Superman. He's not going to have any character or, like, development or personality beyond just being, like, gay man. Just like what they did with Kathy Kane Batwoman. I defy you to name any character traits about Kathy Kane beyond is a lesbian. I'll wait. And yeah, I mean, speaking of Batwoman, I'm sure you all heard about the what's-her-face lesbian complaining about the show. I mean, I could not care less about that, so I didn't do any research on it. Yeah, now that we're on the topic of DC Comics characters with one-note personalities and characterization, but straying away from the pole smoking and muff diving, yeah, I'll just say this. Fuck Power Girl 2. Name anything about her character other than giant tits. I'll wait. Boy, this makes me happy. I haven't read any new comics books that were published since about 2010. It's all archives for me. And that's what you have to do. You gotta vote with your wallet. That's the only way to learn them. Of course, my wallet is just a drop in a bucket, but hey, enough drops in a bucket makes up a full bucket, doesn't it? I say to myself, with the faint hopes that one day Amazon will go out of business. I used to work in the procurement center at Amazon, and that was I'm just going to say it, that was the worst job I ever worked in my life. I was not one of those people who was like wearing diapers or pissing in bottles, but I saw people doing it. I am far too dignified a man to do that, thank you very much. Yeah, but to go back to the superhero thing, are we really so surprised that a superhero is being portrayed as gay? I mean, let's be honest with ourselves and realize that superheroes are inherently kind of fruity. Sorry, I gotta look at the chats again. I see chats are going off. Okay, equine fleshlights may represent some people need. Oh, well, Mr. Ponythroat, if you yourself want the equine fleshlights, you do you, okay? That's not my business. I don't judge. I'm a very tolerant man. Yes, I agree, Mr. Melnikov. Sex workers are far more human than politicians. I'm going to tell you a little story. When I was in graduate school, I would make money on the weekends. I would go out and I would play music, in the street, near subway stations and things. And I actually met a, older woman. She was a hooker, and, I did not sleep with her, but, she was very nice. We had a nice conversations, listened to my music. She gave me a generous amount of money. And, I can safely say I've had a better relationship with that woman in a strictly platonic sense than, a lot of people I've met in my life. So, yeah, there's no shame. There's no shame in prostitution, I would say. With that being said, of course, I would probably feel a little bit different if I were married or had a daughter. But, I think it's a necessary evil. And, the medieval church felt the same way. Yes, I agree with the manga thing. I mean, I'm sure, are there mangas that try to cram, dog shit politics down your throat? I don't really know. And who else, I know I'm kind of beating the same drum Razorfist does, but the French actually have very good comics too. The Franco-Belgian comics are pretty cool too. You should check those out as well if you're a comic reader. But yeah, like I was saying, superheroes are inherently kind of fruity. Or at the very least, they can quickly become a homoerotic farce. As pretty much all masculine mythology can. Because, apparently the gays love nothing more than taking traditional gender perceptions and turning them into clown shows. And they even did so in ancient times. There are stories of perverted Greek mythology about Heracles being gay and stuff like that. And, come to think of it, isn't the whole drag phenomenon, or more specifically the gender fuck type of drag, which as far as I can tell is the only kind of drag, isn't that essentially female blackface? It's taking perceptions of femininity and turning it into a clownish caricature. And yeah, I'm told that there's allegedly drag that is subdued and not clownish, but I've never seen it ever in my life. And speaking of homoerotic farce, I recently got around, long after everybody else did, to reading Bronze Age Mindset. I'm going to be honest, I wasn't all that impressed with it. I'm not saying it was terrible, there's some good stuff in it. But it's not nearly as good as some of the dweebs out there think it is. And no, I want to make something clear, I'm not offended by it. I certainly don't think BAP should have been banned from Twitter. I don't think it should have been canceled. I am basically a free speech absolutist. But I'm not going to act like his book was some masterpiece. I'm not going to act like it was anything more than a few good things surrounded by outdated pseudo-history and barely closeted homosexuality. Yes, classic heavy metal does tend to be homoerotic. Well, yes, of course, Rob Halford was openly gay. Okay, yeah, so back to Bronze Age Mindset. Yeah, let's talk about the barely closeted gayness for a second. If you read the book, his hero is Alcibiades, the Athenian statesman. Or should I say the Athenian/Spartan/Athenian/Spartan/Persian statesman. And that's kind of the problem I have with him. Alcibiades was a narcissistic gay boy with a lisp, who spent his entire career selling out whatever nation he was fighting for and was ultimately cut down by a hail of Persian arrows after leaving his mistress inside a burning building. And yeah, I know he was going out to fight people. I know he didn't, he wasn't running away to be a coward. But still, he left his mistress inside a burning building. Excuse me if I don't consider this man to be the greatest hero in Western history. I'm not denying that Alcibiades was a competent military commander. He was. But ping-ponging between Athens and Sparta and then selling out all of Greece to go become a Persian satrap doesn't really impress me all that much. Yeah, who needs to show any loyalty to your peers? We can just be a self-aggrandizing twat hunting personal glory. And yes, I know that's exactly BAP's argument that you should be a pirate. You should glorify yourself and, fuck everybody else. I got mine. I don't necessarily agree with that. His discussions of the resentment of modern architecture and things like that are absolutely true, as are his observations that the ugly and weak resent the beautiful and strong, but I tend to be a little wary of anybody who obsesses over beauty incessantly. I mean, Yukio Mishima did, and look what happened to him. I mean, speaking of homoerotic farce, and yes, I am a fan of Mishima, but his suicide was just a big gay performance piece. Yeah, Mishima's the best a beauty-obsessed narcissist could possibly turn out. Either that or, like, Vega from Street Fighter. Yeah, it's this whole beauty thing combined with his love of the lisping narcissist sociopath, Alcibiades, that convinced me that... Wait, what? Okay, what are your thoughts on that event at a furry convention? I don't know, Mr. Ponythroat. I have no idea what the furries are doing. I miss the days when furries were like the most insane like thing you find on the internet. Like, they're almost tame nowadays. Yeah, I miss those days of like 4chan, Yif and Hell fur fags. Those were innocent times. Yeah, but yeah, to go back to the Alcibiades thing. The fact that BAP loves Alcibiades so much, that convinced me that, yeah, BAP's gonna come dancing out of the closet in 5 years. I mean, he'd hardly be the first dissident right figure to do so. And now I'm sure he'll be a very manly, butch homosexual, banging cute boys and such. But his appreciation of shirtless men that aren't him illustrates that to me. Yeah, I said it. Shirtless men that are not him. Yeah, don't bring up that profile picture of his, that shirtless guy on the beach. I don't know if that's him. I have no proof that it is. I mean, look, I've shown myself shirtless. You've seen my face. If you can show me proof of that guy being BAP, by all means, show me and I will recant this particular statement. I still won't change my opinion of his writing, but I will admit if I can get an obvious fact wrong. But like I said, some of his stuff in that book is good, but the stuff he's saying that is good is basically warmed over Nietzsche 101. And if I wanted to read Nietzsche, I would read Nietzsche. And like I said, it would be hardly unprecedented for him to be a homosexual top, because as Richard Spencer and other alt-right figures have taught us, homosexuality is the last stand of white identity, right? I mean, we all know that homophobia is a quote-unquote Jewish prejudice, and the true Aryan paragon makes sweet love to beautiful teenage boys whenever he pleases. Okay, being in the furry community, no one hates furries more than other furries, so the ones who pull shit like that. Yeah, I've actually seen YouTube videos on, like, the history of the furry, the furry fandom. And I know there's always, like, been this kind of feud between, like, people who just want to watch their cartoons and such, and, like, weirdo animal fetishist people. Yeah, like, there's nothing inherently wrong with, like, liking cartoon animals and watching cartoons, and I would even say, futzing around with your fursuits. But, all the sex stuff, that kind of takes a little far. But, again, the furries are almost kind of quaint and innocent in this day and age compared to the shit we have on the internet now. I'm going to have to disagree with you on that. Brutalist architecture is not nice. I mean, it has its place. I mean, it's great to build a prison brutally, or like a school if you want to convey to the kids that their souls are being destroyed. But, yeah, not a fan. Anyway, I'm sure that BAP would dismiss any criticisms of him that I have, because after all, I am a quote-unquote effeminate beta Asian weakling full of resentment, right? And that brings me to the other main criticism I had of Bronze Age mindset, his historiography about non-European people, which is not only half-truths at best, but it's hardly the new revelation that he seems to think it is. Which is to say that stereotypes such as that have colored Western perceptions of the East for centuries. And yes, I am going to focus on his statements on the Far East because, well, take a wild fucking guess. It's certainly not all white people, but enough of them still cling to the idea of the effeminate Asian male weakling. I myself have argued that certain aspects of Asian culture tend to make its men into dweebs. I mean, I'm not some pan-Asian supremacist nutcase or anything, but it's all nurture, not nature. And a dweeb can be hardened just like any man. So with regards to the, timid Asian fagaloon stereotype, there's a question I have to ask. How many fucking times do you have to learn this lesson, Western world? Let's review a few examples, shall we? 1859, Battle of the Taku Forts. Maybe you've heard of it. Actually, no, you probably haven't. Ignorance about world history is going to be a recurring theme here. But you've heard the term blood is thicker than water? Yeah, that came from here. Good old Josiah Tatnall. Anyway, the British and French stroll in. Well, we should be able to win this easily. They're weaklings, they can't fight. Oh shit, they're bombarding us with cannon fire that's as good as a European artilleryman's. Derp. And yes, I am aware that the Chinese lost the Opium War, but the point I'm trying to make is Europeans literally walked in to a battle and were surprised that a Chinese artilleryman might be able to know how to use his cannon halfway decently. Let's move on. 1904, the Russo-Japanese War. Man, we should be able to win this war easily. The Japanese are effeminate weaklings. I know this. I've seen Madame Butterfly. Oh shit, we lost. 1937. The Chinese and the Japanese are going to war, says Mr. International Observer. Well, this war shouldn't be very bloody at all. Both of those people are inherently weak and effeminate. They can't fight. Oh shit, the war is extremely long and bloody killing fields and eventually got subsumed into the greater aspect of World War II. 1942. Well, we British don't have to worry about defending Singapore. We have nothing to worry about with regards to the Japanese. They're all weak gremlins who wear glasses and eat rice all day. Oh shit, we lost Singapore despite outnumbering them 3-1. 1965. We Americans have nothing to fear from a bunch of gooks wearing black pajamas and hiding in trees. They're fucking yellow doors with pocket knives. Oh shit, we lost the Vietnam War. I'm sure there's other examples. Those are just a few I could think of off the top of my head. Even now you'll see belligerent retards saying the same thing on Twitter. Well, there's no need to worry yourselves about China. They'll roll over the second we fight them. This is the white half of me talking to my fellow white people. Stop underestimating your opponents, no matter what country they're from. Now, I'm sure you all know, the Allies eventually won World War II, and what have you, and the Korean War was a stalemate. I'm not saying victory is impossible. It is possible, but only if you take your opponents seriously. Underestimating them is a stupid thing to do, especially when you've done it multiple times and it's caused disaster every time. Maybe you should, stop thinking about Asian people as being a bunch of waddling faggots, if only so you don't blunder into disaster for, at least the 6th time. Like I said, those are the only examples I could think of off the top of my head. I'm sure if I dug around, I could find a little bit more. Okay, have you ever heard of Motobu Choki? He was a guy who kicked Funakoshi's ass, could have beaten Masoyama. No, I've never heard of him. I'll have to look him up. Or you could tell me about him in the chat. Yeah, you love to hear me do MMA commentary. Well, if some bush league wants to give me a commentary job, I'd certainly like to. So to go back to this little history lesson. Oh, and by the way, I've recently gotten my certification to be a social studies teacher, so the school children in New Jersey are going to get a full helping of this once I find a full-time job. Anyway, I'm not ashamed to admit it. Going back to the China thing. China did spend a solid 100 years, 1840s to the late 1940s, just getting the absolute shit kicked out of it over and over again. Hell, they call it the century of humiliation for a reason. I'd go so far as to argue that all the negative stereotypes of not just China, but Asian people in general, stem from this colonialist time period, the time of European imperialism. Stumbling over my words here. All the stereotypes. The weak and effeminate, sycophantic male stereotype, the female whore, dragon lady stereotype, and all the other things that stem from those two concepts. 100 years of impotence and failure and weakness tends to leave a long-lasting impression on people. That's human nature. And now you understand why China can act like such belligerent assholes. But, let's just acknowledge the stereotypes and where they come from. I mean, BAP actually says a bunch of stupid shit about a lot of non-white people, but again, we're focusing on the East. While he never in the book, as far as I recall, just comes out and says Asian people are inherent weaklings who exist to be conquered, I think that's pretty clearly I think that's pretty clearly the subtext. Taking China as an example, we can clearly see the image he wants to create, the image of a race of effeminate weaklings who enjoy nothing more than bending over and taking it up the ass from foreign interlopers before pathetically trying to glom onto the achievements of their superior conquerors. Like, he goes so far as to claim in the book that Chinese people claim Genghis Khan was Chinese. No, they don't. Nobody has ever done that. As evidenced by the fact that in Inner Mongolia, the part of Mongolia that China owns, Han Chinese people periodically go out of their way to destroy statues of Genghis Khan. So clearly they're not pathetically clinging to his ankles hoping to claim him. Which is in and of itself an example of beta male rage, don't get me wrong, and it's kind of dumb and misplaced, considering that Genghis Khan did not conquer China, his grandson did. But misplaced nationalism and anger over, your great so on grandma getting plowed in some guy's yurt, which certainly is stupid. That's not the same thing as claiming that Chinese civilization is some sort of cultural, battered housewife clinging to its abuser in a comically effeminate attempt to save face, which is clearly the implication of what BAP is trying to say. Or why don't we just let his fans put the implication out there directly? These people will claim, herp-a-derp, the Chinks have literally never won a war ever. I've literally seen this statement on Twitter. Yeah, because, I'm sure all you people are experts in Chinese history. Please, give me a dissertation on the War of the Heavenly Horses, or the Han Seong-Nu War, or the Tang expansion into Central Asia, or the fights between the Chinese and Tibetan empires, or the Sino-Dutch conflicts, or the Imjin War, or the battles of Tamau, or the Battle of Fort Zeelandia. Oh, you don't know anything about those? Well, then stop acting like you're an expert. I just threw out a bunch of random crap just to kind of test you people. I'm far from an expert myself, but I'm pretty sure I know more than BAP does, not just about China, but history in general. Okay. Okay, before I go on with this, I have to ask, Mr. Ponythroat, do you need to take a 5-minute break to go crank one out? You seem to have your mind a little preoccupied on sex. Why don't you jerk off? Please leave the chat and jerk off, then come back. Get that post-nut clarity going. Trying to talk some history here. Yeah, I'm not some dumbass Wu Mao screaming about China will grow larger. I'm not a Wu Mao at all. For starters, the only Chinese government I recognize is the one on Taiwan. Suck it, John Cena. But, yeah, I'm not whitewashing or glorifying any history. I'm well aware of the conquest dynasties, the times where China did indeed lose real bad, yet conquered by various groups of steppe nomads. There were 4 of these, to be specific: the Liao, the Jin, the Yuan, and the Qing. The first 2 conquered substantial parts of northern China, but not the whole thing, while the latter 2 conquered the whole kit and caboodle. The Jin and the Qing were in fact the same group of people, the Manchus, separated by about 500 years. But the point I'm trying to make here is I hardly think the concept of conquest dynasties is that unique when you are a large land empire surrounded by other large land empires. It's hardly a matter of clockwork routine due to Chinese civilization being a race of effeminate weaklings browbeaten by quote-unquote overweight earth mammies, which is literally what he says in Bronze Age Mindset. Yeah, China got conquered at some points, they took over for a while, and they were eventually kicked out. China's hardly the only country to ever get conquered at some point in its history. You ever hear of the Norman conquest of England, to cite one example? Oh, by the way, were the Normans ever explicitly kicked out? Yeah, I didn't think so. Out of curiosity, I'm curious as to why he doesn't give somebody like Koxinga the accolades he gives to Alcibiades. They seem pretty similar to me. Koxinga, being a competent military man who struck out on his own after the fall of the Ming dynasty, smacked around the Dutch on Formosa and established his own dynasty on Taiwan, a king by his own hand. I'm sure it's just a clerical error that BAP neglected him when talking about the cool Sigma male pirates that he idolizes. I bet it has nothing to do with the fact that he literally thinks Asian men are incapable of ever doing anything like that due to their inherent effeminacy and faggotry. Now, I'm not going into some weirdo whitewashing of history. Like, is China the most successful nation in the world? No. Has it been an unstoppable military juggernaut throughout its, cohesive 5,000 years? No. I never claimed it to be. When your civilization has existed in some form for 5,000 years, yeah, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. But again, I think there's a reason why China has historically been the foremost power in East Asia until the 1800s, which, again, I don't think would be feasible if the nation was comprised entirely of quote-unquote hairless beta male bean counters. It's almost as if he bases his historiography on the writings of overt racists from the 1800s, writing about China at its most weakest and most degenerate state in living memory. Give me 1 second here. I'm seeing some interesting chats here. So, okay, let's see. We have the following Soviet children's book, picture of a yellow blob with eyes and a bowl of rice. This is Huang. He eats rice. He is Chinese. Hey, I mean, there's certainly American children's books that have, like, Chinese people in them, too. Maybe not that overtly racist. We got to talk about the 5 Chinese brothers and all that. Okay, Wataru Choki was a classically trained karateka. I've gotten some shit about pronouncing that wrong. Got a reputation as a ruffian, honed his rice skills by picking fights. He hated and went over... didn't Masatatsu Oyama do the same thing? At least that's what the documentary Karate Bullfighter taught me. Okay, so yeah, to go back to the China thing. While I'm here, I'm going to make a comparison. This annoys me just as much as the retards who claim that the French are cowards. That annoys me just as much, and I'm not even French. I mean, that just shows a complete and utter ignorance of history, and I'm going to go out on a limb here. Anybody who claims to be a history buff and claims that any large, well-known empire is inherently weak and effeminate needs to get punched in the face. Yeah, I'll just say it. Not all, sorry, but some Westerners have conceptions of Asia that are, to put it bluntly, completely fucking stupid. And yeah, it does certainly go the other way, too. Hence the stuff I talk about with Asian sex bullshit. All the nonsense Asian SJWs talk about is effluvia. All that, somebody made fun of my lunch in 3rd grade. That's nonsense. Because all of it is just distracting from this stuff right here that I'm talking about. That is a legitimate issue. It is the only legitimate issue. And it causes problems, and it ought to be solved. I mean, hell, I've done several videos kind of criticizing my people. But, it's constructive criticism to do better. Like I said, I feel that, Asian culture does have certain traits that make its men into dweebs. But my argument has always been to essentially use, that dweeby mindset, that, kind of studious, like, bean counter mindset, and just apply it to fitness and martial arts and masculinity. Everything I've been talking about with regards to Bronze Age mindset and BAP, that is the Asian sex bullshit issue in action. And the more you look for it, the more you look for the utterly idiotic sexual stereotypes the West has of Asia, and the stereotypes all have some sort of sexual element, the more examples you'll find. Like, oh, what's that? James Clavell? Asian cultures don't have the concept of love? Yeah, okay, sure. Yes, Taipan literally does say that. Yeah, I'll check the chats in a little bit, but I'd hardly be surprised if somebody is saying, well, actually, no, I don't think so. I mean, if I were to get a certain crowd going, I would have some people saying, like, but Asian men are inherently weaker, because, there's always the fucking anthropologists. Rabble, we got that neoteny, the bone density, testosterone, Ray. They always go with this shit. I mean, if you look at the incels, like, they're always going to go with this shit. And yeah, like, I wasn't sure if there would be incels in the chat. There doesn't seem to be, which is good. Like, I'm almost certain BAP believes this himself, which is probably why he doesn't like Asians. I mean, a lot of gay men don't, from what I hear. Yeah, so, with regards to the whole neoteny thing and the testosterone thing, somebody please explain to me why Chinese men dominate Olympic weightlifting. I mean, nobody's ever been able to give me a solid answer to this question, which is to say, why do Asian men, the quote-unquote weakest, daintiest, most effeminate of men, barely even men at all, why are they pound for pound, and I emphasize pound for pound, the strongest men on the planet that's shown by the Olympics? Well, I'm sure that's just a complete mystery. And yeah, I mean, I know that communism has a lot to do with it. There's two things communists do well. It's music and weightlifting. And of course, it's a complete mystery why nobody knows about this. To the point where I took a girl on a date once and I was talking to her about the Olympics. This was very recently. The girl looks me dead in the eye and she told me she had no idea weightlifting was a competitive sport. I mean, I don't want to make conspiracy theories that it has something to do with the fact that seeing an Asian man being strong and virile and masculine and dominant, that something is offensive to some people. But, you know, it makes you think. Which I'm not going to beat this drum again. You can watch the 35-minute long Asian sex bullshit video I did. But, you know, again, this does prove my thesis that all of the Asian sex bullshit, which is, again, the only issue Asian Americans face, it would disappear within seconds if Asian dudes collectively hit the gym, got good haircuts, and learned how to talk to the women. If I actually have my screaming, cut your fucking bowl cut as my subscription notification, if anybody were to subscribe right now. You know, but yeah, now this is my Asian half talking to Asian people, alright? The certain people, they don't want you to be strong. They don't want you to have game. They want you to be a sleeve-tucking faggot making fried rice. I realized that a long time ago, and again, it's not everybody, but certainly is some people. I realized that a long time ago, and my answer was simple. Fuck that. So take your yellow thumb and stick it in their eye. Become a manly man and prove them wrong. And to go back to the weightlifting thing, don't say steroids. Yeah, like, Liu Xiaojun, I'm sure he's juiced up to the gills. But if you think the Americans aren't, and the Russians and the Bulgarians and literally everybody else is not also on steroids, you are far more naive than me. Listen to Nick Diaz. Everybody is using steroids in professional sports. And, you know, the weightlifting thing, which, you know, if you watch, like, weightlifting and bodybuilding channels, which I do, this is another example of the idiotic views some Westerners have of Asia. They tend to fit into one of two completely ludicrous extremes. Either a hyuk, they're all effeminate little sleeve-tucking sissies and the women all want my dick. Or, oh my god, they're genetically engineered cyborgs, they have no empathy, they're gonna kill us all, ah! This dichotomy can be observed on Twitter. On the one hand, is the shit I've been talking about. On the other hand, look how many people on the American right wing stand for communist China these days. And again, they're both wrong. Asian people are just people. They eat food and they go to work just like anyone else. Okay, also, I'm curious as to what BAP's opinions are of, I don't know, Ireland, or Poland, or Albania, or Armenia, or Greece, or the Balkans, or Hungary, Russia, Spain, Portugal, Germany, Italy, Sicily, Anglo-Saxon England, Normandy, or any of the other European countries that spent hundreds of years under the dominion of some conqueror or another. Are they effeminate fagaloons having their fat earth mammies stomp on their balls too? Or does that standard just not apply to them for some inexplicable reason? So, yeah, while I can see the appeal of some of what BAP says, you know, the old appeal of what H.L. Mencken said, again, plagiarizing much better writers, the old appeal of hoisting the Jolly Roger and cutting throats, you know, that was not a direct quote, so it's not direct plagiarism, but I can definitely see the influence. His book is mediocre at best, and anybody who clings to every word he says is a dumbass. It's hipster edgelord's baby's first Nietzsche. It's not terrible, but nothing great. A solid 5 out of 10. And, you know, I just have to ask him, am I sufficiently rebellious and brave and masculine enough to earn your respect, you pompous closet case? This is, of course, assuming that he or his fans wouldn't respond to my criticisms with anything other than the old reliable, I was trolling, don't take it seriously, because that's always the last resort of the half-bright twat. Lol, I troll you. Okay, yeah, that was a lot of talking off the bullet points. Let's take some chats. Let's kind of run through those chats. Let's see, okay. Jesse N. Cam made a video on him. I don't watch Jesse N. Cam, but I don't know. Okay, Mitchell Valentino says, I lived in Asia for a decade, and then I lived in Flushing, New York, which is all Chinese. Yes, it is. I've seen some jacked Asian dudes. There isn't much interaction with middle American worn-out stereotypes. Yeah, like I said, I've had, like, on multiple occasions, people tell me, like, wow, you're pretty, I don't think you're Asian, like, you're so jacked and, like, confident. And I've had, like, kind of, like, old geezers look at me shocked when I dare to walk around with an attractive woman on my arm. But, yeah, it's not, I'm not going to say it's, like, every person. It's probably happened to me, let's see, probably, like, 5 times in my life. Not a huge number. Yes, the Chinese are very methodical in their training. There's one thing commies are good for, it's weightlifting. I mean, I wish incels did come into the chat. I mean, I battle rap them dominantly, but yeah, I'm always welcome to give the incels a whooping. Diego, Chinese weightlifters are on the juice. Well, no shit. So is everybody. China dominates weightlifting because if they fail, they get organ harvested. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Okay, my favorite fitness channel is Goku Flex. Personally, I like Nick's Strength and Power and Infinite Elgin Intensity, personally. Infinite Elgin Intensity is a lot like me and his, kind of dour, deadpan sarcasm. And he does, he does riffs on bad fitness, much like me, except much more successful. I've never heard of Goku Flex, but I might check him out. Okay, speaking of Africa, do you think they dog in the meander as the final right to the... I have no idea what that means. Maybe you want to rewrite that and kind of tell me what you said. Alright, so I'm just going to tell you, I'm kind of done talking off the bullet points. Next time I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to play some video games, do a live stream of some video games, and I'll yak on about current events or whatever. Same thing as I'm doing now, just with slightly longer periods of silence. I'm going to be playing some games. I'll take chats just like last time. If anybody has any questions to ask me or want to say something, you can do that right now because I am about to leave. I'll give you about a couple minutes because I actually have to do some stuff at 3:30. Yeah, I'm on EST because the Eastern Coast is the best coast. For the record, give me 1 second. I'm going to look up when Infinite Elgin Intensity, started his thing. Because I started in 2015. I don't exactly remember when he started his thing. Let's see. Okay, Infinite Elgin Intensity started in April 2014. So, I hardly think anybody heard of him at the same time I was starting my channel. So, by an astonishing coincidence, I happen to be very similar to him. But yes, thank you, you weird horse porn enthusiast. Thanks for stopping by. Hey, no problem, Mitchell. Keep sending in those super chats and what have you. Yes, thank you for being the only person who sent in super chats. I'm sure you people will be coming by later and sending chats. Okay, so you have 1 minute to go if you want to ask me a question. I'm going to leave otherwise. And sitting here twiddling my thumbs. And yet, if you have questions to ask me, please send me an email at larsenhalleck@gmail.com or, in the comments of this live stream. Or if you want to request what game I'd be playing next week, you can do that as well. Otherwise, I do have to get going. Okay, we have the minute approaches. Okay, so nobody has anything else to say, so that will be it for today. For Larsen.